Hello everyone and welcome back to the Racing Minds podcast. This weekend we are going to discuss about the Mexican Grand Prix. It was quite an exceptional and an amazing one, with the drivers and constructors title both closing up, both going almost neck to neck. It would be a quite interesting end to the season. Let's see our five key takeaways from the Mexican Grand Prix. Number one, Ferrari are back. They are truly back. I mean, with the way they have been performing, currently they're 29 points behind McLaren for the Constructors' World title. Both Sainz and Leclerc are performing at the best of their levels. If you see from the start of the race, yes, Sainz had almost not that great of a start compared to Max Verstappen, but once after the safety car has ended, you could see he made a perfect overtake on Max Verstappen and he hasn't put a foot wrong since. They would have almost gotten a 1 2, but Leclerc, unfortunately, he got under a bit of pressure. He didn't have the enough grip, and at least he got home a P3 when Lando was chasing him. He almost crashed into the wall, but happy that he didn't, and he came home P3. P3 is better than at least crashing the car out. So it's amazing from Ferrari. Now we see the drivers' world title and the battle between Max and Lando. You can see the Max and Lando battle where it has went last weekend in the US Grand Prix, and this weekend it was almost similar, if not a bit more. Max, I felt, pushed the limit a little bit more this weekend, and stewards have heavily penalized him. Well, rightly so. He got a 20-second time penalty, 10 seconds for pushing Lando off track when Lando tried to overtake him around the outside. In the same lap, when you have a section of aerodynamic corners where you take a sharp left and the corners just swing by until you have a DRS zone and a sharp right in the Mexican track. Lando Norris was kind of minding his own business, and Max Verstappen just dives down the inside with no intention or control of making it properly around the corner and ends up pushing Lando Norris as a result. The stewards have taken a very strict action on this one, and I think Jos Verstappen rightly said, you can as well say who wins the world title will heavily depend on how strict the stewards are in the next four Grand Prix. Let's wait and find out, because this is going to be an interesting one. A quick shout out to Fernando Alonso for having 400 Grand Prix. I mean, he has started about more than 20 years ago, and when he started racing, Colapinto and a few other drivers might not have even been born. And Fernando still staying with the same passion, energy. In fact, you give him a good car, you have seen what he can do last year. And I'm excited to see what he can do with Adrian Newey's developments next year. So amazing from Fernando. I hope we really get to see a lot more years from him about this. The next part is Red Bull. Red Bull's weekend has gone from bad to worse. I mean, they started P2 and P18. No, it doesn't seem very bad, but started off by Max Verstappen having a 20-second time penalty. Sergio Perez, right from the beginning, he was continuously making mistakes. I think, as in racing, they say once you have a bad weekend or a downward spiral of things, it just kind of snowballs and gets bigger and bigger and bigger, and mistakes starts to creep in every now and then. In fact, Sergio Perez had a very small mistake at the beginning of the race that he started ahead of the grid box, starting his penalties from there, and he gets a 5-second penalty. Yes, he had a great start by overtaking about 5 cars at the beginning of the race, but this 5-second penalty still haunted him. And then he gets out to race Liam Lawson. I mean, we know that both of them bought that Red Bull seat pretty hard, and Sergio Perez tries to send it down the inside. Well, that is a corner typically you do overtake, but I think Liam Lawson had a very clear racing line already, and Sergio Perez decided to send it down a little bit too late at that point. And when he sends out, Liam Lawson didn't seem like someone who's going to give up the position. So they ended up touching each other, and unfortunately, Sergio Perez loses his bodywork. And from there, he had a pit stop. He was about P17 or P16 at that point after the pit stops. He really didn't have the pace or the car to overtake with the damage on the car and with the pace on his end. So his weekend went from bad to worst when Red Bull at the end of the Grand Prix decided to take away the fastest lap from McLaren and pit him from towards the last lap so that he can get the fastest lap. But Charles Leclerc ended up taking it, and unfortunately for Sergio Perez, he ends up the last in his home Grand Prix. It's quite one of his worst Grand Prix I feel he had that too in his home race. I hope he gets to have another home race and hopefully he'll get to show what he's really capable of. I mean, he's a really good driver, but for this year, for some reason, he's just been on a downward spiral since the beginning. The next part we would like to discuss is Haas. Haas have had an excellent turnaround compared to last year, with Eio Komatsu at the lead, at the helm of this team right now. The way he has switched around and turned around things, they are about to finish P6 in the constructors' title. It's quite an exceptional set of races they have been having, and especially Kevin Magnussen kind of being the race leader over the course of last couple of races. Last race he couldn't score points because of the strategy, but this race he was exceptional from start to finish. In fact, towards the start of the race, he was holding up the Mercedes. Not holding up, but exactly within DRS zone. He was about 14-15 laps, he was still within DRS of the Mercedes, and towards the end of the Grand Prix, Oscar Piastri in a McLaren is not able to overtake a Haas. I mean, forget overtaking, he had a lot of difficulty getting up to Kevin Magnussen, even his DRS. So, quite an exceptional race from Kevin Magnussen and the whole Haas team. The great job they have been doing over the course of this year. Lastly, and most importantly, the drivers and the constructors world championship. With how things have been going on, Max Verstappen is 47 points ahead of Lando Norris. Quite a good lead, but at this point, if Ferrari are not up to the mark, I think Lando has a great chance of winning the world title. Why? Because you can see over the course of last few races, Lando not scoring the highest points available over the course of Grand Prix, which is 25, 26 if you consider the fastest lap. The reason he's not able to get that is because Ferrari is right up there taking the points from both these teams. So at this point, I think Max has almost the same pace as Mercedes. If Lewis Hamilton or George Russell were ahead of the Red Bull of Max, I'm not sure how much he would be able to overtake both those cars. So at this point, it's Ferrari who's keeping Max Verstappen and ensuring he can have the world title for drivers. And let's see what the next four races have to hold for us. And due to all this, the constructors' world title is also getting closer and closer day by day. Ferrari have last won a constructors' world title in 2008, and the next one might be this year because they are 29 points away from McLaren right now. They're scintillatingly close to the constructors' world title. I really wish they're able to get this world title, and it's been a long time coming. And Carlos Sainz, he deserves to have a world championship to his name, of at least of constructors, if not the drivers at this point. Carlos and Charles Leclerc, it is such an amazing driver pairing, and having a constructors world title to their name would be a perfect ending for Carlos Sainz with Ferrari. Well guys, that was the race review of the Mexican Grand Prix. Let's see what the next four races have in store for us, and I'll see you after the Brazilian Grand Prix.